This is probably nothing, but 3.8 million files relating to UFOs have suddenly disappeared. We have it right here in the Daily Mail. Mystery as UFO vault with 3.8 million files is wiped clean hours after Trump demands alien docs released. Don't you love how this happens? It makes me think of JFK's brain disappearing from the National Archives. We don't know who took that. I sometimes think it's RFK Jr. has it just like in his pocket, but who knows? Maybe they took it because they knew it would prove something, but JFK's brain is missing. The pieces, whatever is left, whatever they picked up out of the convertible is missing. And now this. A massive public archive of declassified U.S. government files vanished just one day after President Trump ordered the release of all UFO-related documents. Remember the pushback that allegedly that Jimmy Carter got when he got into office. Just like to think of that as one of the an earlier bookend to this new disclosure conversation that we're having. The story being, for those who've missed me talk about it a lot on this show, Carter, part of his platform, a very small part, but he did say it when running for president, that he would get into office, should he get into office, which was a major fumble of a presidency. But aren't they all? Was anyone else completely underwhelmed by that State of the Union? I can't believe Trump would give a Medal of Freedom to the insectoids, the reptilians, the Nordics, and the Greys. I mean, you were watching the same State of the Union I was, right? But Carter got into office, and this is all legend. This is all myth. We don't know for sure if this happened, but Carter, after having said he'd release all UFO files because of his encounter with a UFO, which we just went over yesterday in Georgia when running for governor of Georgia, he got in and it never happened. The story is, and now that all these conspiracy theories seem to be coming true, whether that's even real or not, because I think that's a conspiracy theory in itself, as they are beginning to shift the narrative into a new dominant narrative, which they'll have to somehow use the conspiracy theorist population, which has grown exponentially in the past 5 years and a lot in the last year. They're going to use that for something. So just beware of that. But Carter got in and nothing happened. Nothing was released. And the story was that Bush, who was the CIA director at the time, I believe that's what he was, whatever skin suit that man was wearing, he said no. And allegedly he was rather aggressive to sweet old peanut farmer Carter. I think he meant well. You know, he says he was a Christian, but he had a very different attitude towards how to help people. Although I think he did help people with, building houses and stuff. How could you not like that? Although there's issues with there as well. Getting to the weeds a bit. But allegedly Bush said, we're not doing it. I'm not releasing anything with UFOs because of national security. We know what that means. It's never to secure us. It is to secure them and their secrets and their secret weapons. And then Carter never talked about it again, weirdly, in his one term. And he did get out. He was poor, so he made furniture. Carter, that is. And he wrote poetry. And in some of those poems, post-presidency, he went back to talking about aliens. He even wrote a letter to the aliens that he included on the Voyager satellite that we launched into space, if you're into that kind of thing. And so it's funny to me that he just didn't really talk about aliens. Not that I can see. Prove me wrong if you found something from his presidency, from his for that one term that he talked about aliens. But to me, it seems like he didn't talk about aliens at all. After talking about them rather heavily throughout campaigning, I think during one of those early debates, he even brought it up in the debate. He might have been debating Ford. Let's see here. Carter Ford debate. I want to say it was Ford. Yeah. '76, because Ford also had experiences with UFOs. You know, he had a lot of people in his state being like, all right, we got to take care of this. And then that's, I think, the early days of Project Blue Book. You know, they said it wasn't UFOs. You were seeing swamp gas, which is kind of like what we talked about yesterday with that painting when they were like, it's just a flare from the sun. It's an optical illusion, even though the painting looked nothing like that. But anyway, in that debate, Carter and Ford both brought up UFOs. So, you know, this has been going on for decades, at least in terms of presidents. And Carter didn't say anything, got out, started talking about it again, wrote the letter to for Voyager. And then it's just like a joke. You know, it's like it's taboo. And although you guys know I don't really buy into the narrative of aliens, is I think the one that Hollywood or the White House would want us to believe in, there's really no difference between Hollywood and the White House these days. It's all just like one big WrestleMania, which is, you know, WrestleMania is fun, but not when it's a governing body of tyrants. But here we are. Now we've got Trump. In the wake of the Epstein files, you know, they're going to throw everything at us. Mark my words. They're going to start throwing everything at us because they're going to want us. By us, I mean the people who are dissident leaning, some of us more than others, the ones who understand that the stories of conspiracy theories are actually the true meniscus, this binding thread throughout our history here in America that governs us. You know, the things that sounded taboo once, like mind control or secret bioweapon experimentation, that is the reality. And it's becoming more and more clear through the Epstein files. Again, as we've gone over, why now? You know, and I think it's because they're shifting that narrative. And, you know, these lizard people are slipping into new skin suits, and they are counting on chaos so they can start to profit from their portfolios of war that they've designed, that they talk about in the Epstein files amongst one another. Hey, you know, when we go to war, when we manufacture war, we'll confuse the people and we can make more money. It's a lot of extracting. It's lots of vampirism, whether it's literally them drinking blood or them sinking their fangs into civilization as a whole and gobbling up all the money they can while creating human suffering. So when they throw everything at us, it's going to be like, what can we dig up and throw at these people to keep them distracted? It's like, you know, throwing breadcrumbs at geese. Let's give them Jimmy Hoffa. Let's give them more mind control, more church committee. We'll give them the illusion of enlightenment and just let them do their things while we build out our doomsday bunkers and make our breakaway civilization right underneath their noses. Anyway, a massive public archive of declassified U.S. government files vanished just one day after President Trump ordered the release of all UFO-related documents. The Black Vault, run by researcher and ufologist John Greenwald Jr., had its main server reportedly wiped clean on February 20th, deleting hundreds of gigabytes worth of files on UFOs, declassified CIA projects, and other major conspiracies, including the assassination of JFK. Was this on purpose? I don't know, but it might remind you of 1973 when CIA Director Richard Helms burnt a lot of the MK Ultra files. So nothing new here. Let's see, where is the Black Vault? Let's do a little bit of typing and talking, shall we? Where's the Black Vault location? Is it on the moon? Is it on the fake moon? Is that what the moon is? The Black Vault? That's what I'm going to start calling the moon. The Black Vault, for those who don't know, is an American online archive of declassified government documents founded in 1996 by John Greenwald Jr. Maybe it's Greenewald. Maybe that you pronounce that middle E there. Created when Greenwald was a teenager, the site began as a personal project to collect and digitize records released through the Freedom of Information Act. The site is a civilian repository of federal records and contains millions of files spanning subjects from the CIA programs such as MKUltra, Project Blue Book, and other investigations of UFOs. The archive has been cited by major media outlets, including the Washington Post, USA Today. Okay, we've brought it up quite a while ago. Some things they have on there. Oh, they also have a podcast. Look at that. In the 1970s, the United States CIA's Research and Development Office created the Inspectothopter, a miniature unmanned aerial vehicle. Insectothopter. That's how you say it. A miniature unmanned aerial vehicle. A prototype went on display at the CIA Museum in 2003. In 2013, the Black Vault filed a FOIA request for records on the program, and in 2020, the CIA released the files in response. Look how much we can do. In 2024, the Black Vault published Secret Service documents detailing biting incidents involving Commander, President Joe Biden's German Shepherd at the White House. Remember that one? Those are good stories. So a lot of stuff there about Blue Book, UFOs. The Wikipedia page has not been updated yet about this mysterious disappearance of files. Greenwald shared the news online, explaining that some server directories had their permissions, the safeguards on who can access or edit them, and the file ownership logs changed without explanation. Isn't that something? Black Vault has become a go-to resource for anyone wanting to see exactly what the government has quietly made public over the last 80 years. It's a really great vault of research that when we get new files, people would have been able to cross-reference or go back to. You know, the way that a lot of these new Epstein files are making people go back and look at things we've already had and then seeing them under a new light from a new angle. That's what would have happened here. But now that they're gone, like, hopefully we can get them back. But if we don't get them back, that is something that this will prevent. This like cross-examination or looking at old files in new ways to see if they make more sense. The same thing happened with the JFK files when those were released last year. We were able to then take those and then look at older files and then make a bigger picture. Try to paint a bigger picture. Not getting a lot of answers, but at least trying to zoom out a little more for different undercover CIA, psyops they were doing in Cuba or following Lee Harvey Oswald. Greenwald has spent 3 decades organizing information on hidden programs and little-known incidents that suggest the U.S. has been involved in top-secret efforts to recover and take advantage of alien technology. Troves of declassified files. The public can freely search through the Black Vault, detail military base reports, witness testimonies, and even CIA directives since the 1940s and 50s, which have been unsealed without widespread public knowledge. Who do you think is behind this? Does it smell like a government operation to you? The researcher has also publicly revealed every time a FOIA request was returned by the CIA, FBI, and other government organizations with little or no response. The timing of the potential sabotage came just hours after the president's history-making declaration ordering the Pentagon to disclose anything related to alien and extraterrestrial life, unidentified aerial phenomena, and UFOs. So let's read this is what John said. It's a great idea, and shout out to him for doing this all those years ago. He said, yesterday I discovered that 100% of my main document server was just gone. No files, nothing. This was hundreds of gigs of data in thousands of directories, and it just vanished. In addition, numerous server-side directories had permissions changed and file ownership changed. It is unclear why, and I've never seen this in the history running web servers for the Black Vault. I am not sure when exactly this happened, but I discovered it yesterday. I have server monitors up, but never got notified of anything down. The server was just throwing forbidden errors, which is why it technically didn't show as down. So I never got a notification. Let me be clear. I do not fully suspect foul play, but the main web hosting provider for that server, I run for, he says in parentheses, I had no idea what happened, and on their side they said it was a deletion, not corruption. In my honest opinion, I feel it was a very oddly timed server maintenance done by the hosting provider that went awry. They didn't catch it, and when I did, they didn't take blame, and there was no way to fully prove what happened and by whom. Could I be wrong? Yes. Could it have been foul play? I can't rule it out. It's a very diplomatic response from something that appears to be super shady. All right. Until recently, the U.S. government has flat out denied that UFOs or extraterrestrial beings existed, maintaining for decades that there has never been any physical evidence recovered that proves something non-human has ever landed on Earth. However, Trump's February 19th order came after the publicly criticized former President Barack Obama, after he publicly criticized Obama for saying in an interview that aliens are real. Trump claimed the 44th president had revealed classified information. I mean, we're still waiting on the birth certificate. Greenwald has previously filed over 11,000 FOIA requests with the U.S. government to obtain these documents. That's like a full-time job, including some declassified reports that date back to the alleged UFO crash landing at Roswell in 1947. His investigations have also provided legitimate paper trails detailing how former administrations and the intelligence community created secret task force of high-ranking military and scientific officials to research UFO incidents. And you remember from yesterday's episode how they also create UFO mythology as a cover story, lies, to cover for secret weapons testing. So, and as we discussed yesterday, these groups include the Majestic 12, which was allegedly formed after the Roswell crash and worked for over 2 decades investigating sightings of alien spacecraft working with non-human technology and containing extraterrestrials. So, let's see. Okay, one last. There's a few more paragraphs here. Luckily for the Black Vault, Greenwald revealed that all of the more than 3.8 million files were backed up in a secure location, and the site was restored soon after the mysterious wiping took place. Okay. After all these ads, that is good. It is a stark reminder to us all, me included, keep backups, keep them in multiple places, and never be intimidated by anything that comes our way, no matter what we expect may have happened. You know what that makes me think? Okay, I think 2 things. Either they wouldn't have expected for him to have a backup, someone who's been running a website for this long, in the age of like everyone knowing they need backups, or this is we're going to get a little more conspiratorial, or this was a plan to make it all sound crazier than it really is. As in, let's, and by let us, I mean we're going to put on we're working for the CIA now. And this is what they would be thinking, perhaps, in the age of disclosure, in the age of trying to get all of us on board with this new narrative. Let us hack into the Black Vault and delete these things, and we'll create a Barbra Streisand, the Streisand effect, and it'll get more people's eyes on this, and it'll show them that we are actually very serious now. It looks like we're trying to cover this up. Honestly, that feels like what might be happening. That's just me. That's just my initial gut reaction now after seeing that paragraph that I didn't see earlier. I hadn't scrolled down this far. There's like 1 million ads, of course, in the Daily Mail. And here, tucked at the very bottom, beneath all these ads for things to help with your blood pressure, is this. And I'm like, okay, they must know, whoever did this, that there was backups. I think a lot of people who are working inside the government or government adjacent trying to push this narrative are trying to get it to such a fever pitch that people can't deny that this narrative must be taken seriously after years of taboo and writing it off. And now it's like, oh wow, look at that. They deleted millions of files. Seems like an op to me. It seems like we need everyone to look at this and see what are they covering up? But that's just me. Let me know what you guys think about this. So it's just they're saying more from his statement here. So that leaves the possibility of hackers breaching the server through vulnerabilities, including weak passwords, outdated software, or phishing attacks. Once in the system, the attackers might delete files to cause chaos, especially if the site deals with sensitive data that some groups might want suppressed. Critics of the Trump administration's promise to release the files tied to UFOs and extraterrestrial contact have claimed the move is merely a stunt to distract the public from other public or political controversies, and nothing about aliens will be actually learned. I might be some of those critics. So I think we should have sustained pressure on the Epstein files. And stuff is still coming out. I mean, there's a ton of stuff. It's dizzying. It's a revolving door of insanities. And I have a few things we'll talk about later on. But you can see how the alien narrative has been really doing a number. Many on social media have pointed to previous releases of the documents detailing President Kennedy's assassination and the Jeffrey Epstein files, both containing heavily redacted information that provided no definitive smoking gun. Clearly. Coffee break. Try to mitigate the sound of coffee. I don't, the mute button on this thing doesn't work as well as the other microphone. But I like this one more. I don't know if the volume was a little better yesterday. I hope it was. But I dig this one a little more. I have this from today. From the IB Times. That is the International Business Times.com. Trump faces Pentagon revolt as demon fears stall UFO declassification bombshell. President Donald Trump pledged to pull back the curtain on America's deepest UFO secrets, and it has reportedly hit unexpected turbulence, not from political rivals, but from within his own defense establishment. Officials are weighing now how much the public should be told, with concerns ranging from national security to cultural and religious sensitivities. What began as a bold promise of transparency has now become a contested process. The outcome could determine whether July's planned disclosure is remembered as a turning point or a cautious half step. Again, why would we wait until July if this is so important, if this is so existential? Rewriting human history. You see, there's all these different stories about rewriting human history. We found this new thing. It's 30,000 years old. Another thing that's 1 million years old. Numbers I don't believe in. But, that's just me. These are starting to populate headlines a lot lately. It's not just aliens. It's tablets. It's skeletons. It's whatever. According to multiple insider claims, parts of the Pentagon are pushing back against full declassification amid fears that the phenomenon may have demonic or even interdimensional implications. The result is a tense standoff that could shape how much the public is actually told. Trump recently directed officials to identify and prepare UFO and extraterrestrial-related files for potential release. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth confirmed that the Pentagon is working on the directive and promised full compliance with the president's instructions. However, he also cautioned that the process would take time and should not be oversold. I don't think we're going to get a lot out of this. I think what they're going to release is going to be a lot like how it was for the JFK files. We knew this. Okay, there's a new name. We found out this person was actually hiding under that alias the whole time. I don't think they're going to be giving us a lot of new information. Behind the scenes, sources claim there is serious internal hesitation. Some officials reportedly fear that revealing certain findings could trigger public panic or religious upheaval. If your theology is good, we should have spiritual discernment to understand what it is they're showing us. And like I always say, the government always lies, unless it's about aliens. Clearly. Others argue that the phenomenon is too poorly understood to be responsibly disclosed in full. Well, I just want transparency. There's been a lot of what I like to think of as it's false transparency with this administration. They are pretending to be transparent. So they give us breadcrumbs, but it's not real transparency. They're definitely not doing the things that, something like Agenda 47 was promising to do. They've been embracing it, and they've produced, just ghoulish figures who are really good at cosplaying as some of the cool guys on podcasts like Cash Patel and Dan Bongino. And these people are just straight up. I think Dan Bongino is like possessed. He looks like a sick man every day, just more and more looking like RoboCop without the helmet. Look it up. While the administration maintains that the classification is under review, insiders suggest the scope of what will ultimately be released remains very much in flux. It's not going to be a lot. I don't think it's going to be a lot. So that is that. I figured we'd just go through a few different ways. So if we're thinking of it, if that article is to be taken seriously, and who knows, right? Who knows? Because it's just according to insiders. According to sources familiar with the thinking of the president. There's pushback within the administration because of, perhaps chaos that could ensue, panic, or religious upheaval. At a time when there seems to be a lot of people turning to church for the first time. Now, what kind of church? Yeah, I don't know. That's a whole different argument we could have. I know we've had Mormons call in, we've had Orthodox Christians, we've had Catholics call in and on the show, Christians, non-denominational, and it's interesting, obviously, because all these different types of denominations have different interpretations of the spiritual realm, especially when it comes to either demons or aliens, or aliens as demons, or if they're two separate things. So I just brought up a few different websites here just to go down that path for various denominations and how it might look, and then try to draw a conclusion for you guys, for yourselves. What does this mean to you if they are to release? If Trump comes out and says, we have it, we've had these bodies for the greatest body. We've had the greatest extraterrestrials. I'm not even going to attempt to do an impersonation. We've had the greatest extraterrestrial specimens of any world government. They've been in Roswell the whole time. You were correct. Thankfully, you didn't successfully raid Roswell, because you would have seen it. We had it all there. They're at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base as well. And also Adam Schiff is an alien, clearly. But how does that affect you? I really am genuinely curious. How does that affect you? Do you believe it? Do you think about it in the way we talked about the other day, where there's those guys like the Blurry Creatures crew? They think that aliens exist, and that if you say it's all just demons or demonic, I guess I would say if you just think it's demons, then you're diminishing God's creation. I think they're wrong. I don't agree with that. But how do you take it? Because then we had Mormons call in. They're like they would say like Bigfoot is it Cain? Bigfoot is Cain from the Old Testament. So you see how there's just so many different interpretations here that come out of the Bible. Clearly, I mean, even within one denomination, we could have arguments over which translation you want to read, which are great arguments. So this is from Catholic.com. I don't know. I'm sure different Catholics will look at this in different ways, but I just figured we'd bring it up and add this to what we were just talking about the alleged strife within the administration about what UFO declassification could mean and how it might affect, perhaps, religion. The public worldwide conversation about UFOs, also known as UAP, has become more widespread and mainstream in recent years. Is there a date on this? This is from 2 years ago. It presents Catholics with a challenge. Does the church teach that angels are the only form of non-human intelligence created by God? Is belief in extraterrestrial intelligence or other forms of non-human intelligence contrary to Catholic faith? For essential context in this discussion, we must consider the history of the non-human conversation in the Catholic intellectual tradition. Have there been prominent theologically faithful voices over the centuries who believed in non-human interactions, or were at least open to the possibility of it and saw no conflict between that notion and the truths of divine revelation? All right. There have been indeed pre-Christian Greek philosophical ideas about the cosmos served largely as the science of the day for most Catholic thinkers in the ancient and medieval worlds. The two most influential Greek philosophers, Plato and Aristotle, insisted that the earth was the center of a single universe with the other heavenly bodies revolving around it. They thought Mars, Venus, and the other planets were wandering stars, with no concept of a planet as a rocky or gaseous ball on which life could exist. There was thus little room in the dominant ancient Western cosmology for extraterrestrial intelligence. Such creatures would have nowhere to live. Even so, the possibility of two particular forms of ETI was admitted. Aristotle once suggested that the moon might be inhabited. Well, by Nazis, of course. They are inside the hollow moon. We know this. Plato thought, and it was time-traveling Nazis. Aristotle didn't know that, but he knew it. Plato thought the stars were sentient beings with souls that moved their bodies across the sky. This latter notion of ETI was considered a reasonable possibility by St. Augustine, one of the greatest theologians of the ancient church. A lot of writers I like to read, even writers who consider themselves either atheist or agnostic, a lot of them point to St. Augustine as one of the greatest writers. And they think of him as like an early essayist. And they're not wrong. Incredible writer. Incredible writings. Not surprisingly, then, most Catholic thinkers who considered the matter throughout these centuries had no notion of intelligent life on other planets. But some believed in a different kind of non-human, non-angelic intelligence. They thought at least some of the pagan mythological figures, such as centaurs, satyrs, and fauns, actually existed. Among those who held this view were St. Augustine, and it's in City of God, and St. Jerome, who lived from 347 to 420. The latter known as the father of biblical scholarship. The medieval world was largely still under the influence of Aristotle, especially St. Thomas Aquinas. You know what? Take it all back what I said about St. Augustine. I believe it's actually St. Aquinas. I got my A's wrong, my saint with an A wrong. But I believe I am correct now in saying it was Aquinas, who they say was the essayist. Can't keep up with all the saints. So he had no concept of planets as we know them, and thus no speculation about inhabited planets. He was open, however, as St. Augustine had been, to the ancient idea that the stars are intelligent living creatures constituting a different form of ETI. In the 15th century, one prominent Catholic thinker made a decisive turn from the ancient Earth-centered model of the cosmos. Nicholas of Cusa, a German theologian, philosopher, and astronomer, anticipated many aspects of modern cosmology. The universe has no center, he insisted. Earth is only one planet among many, and the heavenly bodies are made of the same basic elements as Earth, and he speculated most likely host intelligent species. We might have expected Cusa's rather radical break with philosophical tradition to provoke considerable opposition, which is kind of what we're talking about with the tense, alleged tense feelings behind the scenes with the UFO disclosure right now in the Pentagon and the White House. Yet his appointment as a cardinal, a papal legate, not sure about that one, and a papal advisor, and his participation in the General Council of Basel, which is in 1431, all suggest that within the Catholic Church, he was respected and embraced by authorities at the highest levels. Meanwhile, his contemporary, the French philosopher and theologian William of Vorilhon, was speculating about an infinity of inhabited planets. You gotta love these conversations. In the following generation, Nicholas Copernicus, a Polish mathematician, astronomer, and doctor of canon law, sparked the famous Copernican revolution of the 16th century in science with his heliocentric, sun-centered model of the cosmos. I just want to see when that was. Just thinking about the upheaval of human perception and religion at that time. Thinking of Copernicus and thinking of like the Reformation, and what was going on, and then the Counter-Reformation, and then, I guess it was 40 or so years later that the Council of Trent happened, and just so much information, new ways of like trying to either solidify or protest against the institution of the Catholic Church, and also how we view, ourselves on this planet and the stars around us. The 16th century was popping off. His findings implied that the planets have physical compositions similar to that of the Earth, though we have no record that Copernicus pondered their possible inhabitants. This new realization led many of his followers to propose the existence of ETI. In the 17th century, the discoveries of the Catholic astronomer Galileo, after considerable controversy, opened the door to further speculation about ETI. In his apology for Galileo, the Dominican friar, theologian, and philosopher Tommaso Campanella noted that no decree had ever been issued by the church denying the possibility of other inhabited worlds. That notion was contrary to Aristotle, he said, not to Scripture. Around the year 1700, the Italian exorcist, Father Sinistrari, argued confidently that the Christian faith did not rule out extraterrestrial intelligence. He also cited approvingly the statements of Augustine and Jerome that affirm the existence of non-angelic, non-human intelligence, offering evidence from his personal experience and that of other exorcists that such creatures are real. In the 18th century, the Croatian Jesuit priest, astronomer, physicist, and philosopher Roger Joseph Boskovic taught at the Collegium Romanum and the University of Padua. He proposed the existence of not only Padua sounds like too Star Warsy. He proposed the existence of not only ETI, but the entire parallel universes existing outside our own. His speculations foreshadowed in certain ways our modern theories about the possibility of a multiverse. By the 19th century, the notion of extraterrestrial intelligence had become widespread among Catholic and other Christian theologians. Those who thought the existence of ETI to be certain, probable, or at least possible included prominent clergymen, religious and theologians in France, Germany, Italy, So the Catholic Church, while it's been debated, does have a view, it seems to be contested, that there is something happening outside of this realm that might not just be angels. And they've been writing about it for hundreds of years. So towards the end here, it says, all these faithful Catholic voices from across the centuries obviously don't prove the existence of non-angelic and non-human intelligence. We should also note that other theologians throughout history have argued against such possibilities. But this brief historical survey does demonstrate that many highly regarded Catholic thinkers have concluded that the existence of such non-human intelligence would not be contrary to Catholic faith. So there's one. I have this from the Orthodox Christian. We've had Orthodox Christians on the show. So this is from orthodoxinfo.com. And, like I said for the other one, if you're Orthodox, you might not like this website. Different Orthodox Christians might debate certain doctrines on the site. But I just want to throw it in there. Most abductees report being taken into spaceships from their homes or from their automobiles while driving. And this is written by Archbishop of Etna. Once in the ship, the atmosphere may be dank, cool, and occasionally even foul-smelling. Their abductors typically appear as tall or short luminous entities that may be translucent or at least not altogether solid. Reptilian creatures have been seen, but by far the most common entity observed are the small grays. Humanoid beings 3 to 4 feet in height. Gender difference is not determined so much anatomically as by an intuitive feeling that abductees find difficult to put into words. A sketch of typical aliens made by one of Dr. Mack's patients appears at left. I don't have that in this, unfortunately. But Dr. Mack observes that abductees will often wish to avoid looking directly into the eyes of the alien because of the overwhelming dread that comes over them while they are there. I'm just going to skip through. He just goes through more of this abduction experience. And then right back to the Archbishop. I should emphasize once more here that the data from which Dr. Mack draws his profile of abduction events, which I have briefly summarized, show an astonishing degree of consistency, nor do any psychological or emotional problems seem to account for his patients' reports. The observed lesions on, and other physical changes in the bodies of the abductees interviewed, furthermore, do not follow the psychodynamic patterns that normally account for self-induced physical scarring. Something has apparently acted on these individuals. Noteworthy is my 17th century chair is trying to talk. Noteworthy, too, is the fact that reports of abductions by young children 2 or 3 years of age who would be unlikely or unable to fabricate such detailed accounts are astonishingly similar to those of Dr. Mack's adult patients. Let's skip. Having examined evidence for the abduction of human beings by alien creatures and Dr. Mack's descriptions of the apparent spiritual changes that these abductees undergo as a result of their encounters with beings from other planets, how is an Orthodox Christian to understand these data? Do they constitute plausible, if curious and bizarre, evidence that humans are being abducted by advanced beings from other planets, indeed by beings with the ability to expand human consciousness and imbue their victims with new levels of spiritual insight? There is an immediate response to these questions. Whether or not these incidents are believable, as Orthodox Christians, we believe that spiritual knowledge, not advanced technology, is the prime factor in the expansion and perfection of human consciousness. I'm going to repeat that. We believe, as Orthodox Christians, is saying that spiritual knowledge, not advanced technology, is the prime factor in the expansion and perfection of human consciousness. We would expect advanced beings from other planets, therefore, to evidence not mundane powers, but highly developed spiritual sensitivities. Enlightenment and salvation, furthermore, are inspired within us, not by alien beings which seek to breed with us and exploit our fallen sexuality, but by God, as he is known in the Holy Trinity, and by his angels and saints. Nor, indeed, do we Orthodox Christians imagine that salvation will come to us from other planets or from super intelligent beings, but from the divinity within us, from our transformation in Christ through union in grace with him. I align with that. I don't consider myself Orthodox Christian, but as a Christian, that feels right. Given what I have said, we must come to understand that there is a decidedly anti-Christian tone in the 8 stages that Dr. Mack identifies in the process of personal transformation in abduction victims. Seeing life in terms of cycles of birth and death, identifying with other beings and entities, this cessation of personhood, and looking to the cosmos for a home. These are all undefined, vague, and eclectic things that violate the precise Christocentric teachings of Christianity and the life of discipline and obedience that spiritual transformation entails. Indeed, the fathers of the church warn us against these false teachings, reincarnation, delusion, and spiritual wanderings. The observations of one of those who have come into contact with aliens. This man called Joe reported that after his initial impression that the aliens were sinister, that's in quotes, or malicious, this is from Dr. Mack's book, he eventually embraced his abductors as his spiritual teachers, peers, and helpers. Don't do that. Rather than grow in an understanding of God and the traditional precepts that they associate with Christianity. After his abduction experiences, he came to think of himself as becoming more human, and in a dream experienced the integration of his male-female self through the symbolic birth of a goddess born in a way too obscene to be repeated. His personal testimony leaves little doubt that the post-abduction transformation of individuals who have contacted alien beings is at odds with Orthodox Christian notions of human enlightenment, transformation, and perfection in Christ, but is rooted rather, as I have argued, this Archbishop says, in a human-oriented idea of personal growth, not dissimilar to that envisioned by the New Age religions. You guys remember when we had that person on who believes they were abducted by an alien as a baby and swapped out, that the aliens extracted her soul and put it into a new body and sent her back. Very New Agey, I think, not sound doctrine. What then if they are not advanced beings from other planets Are these alien abductors? Okay, now we're getting somewhere. You know what I think? I think it's demonic. Ultimately, he says, one cannot escape the conclusion that they are demons or phantoms, there we go, created by demonic power. In the first place, they look like demons. They appear to be material creatures and yet have a transparent character. According to the teaching, also, what does that make you think of taking a soul from somebody and putting it something else? That is the story of Legion, who was filled with many different demons. And then Christ takes them out and puts them into the bodies of pigs and sends them over a cliff. And then also, I don't know if you're going to get into it here, but the fallen angels, this is going back to Genesis, with the Nephilim. But because they are corrupt and degenerate, they thrive on the human passions and they feed on them. This well explains, also sounds like the tech vampires in Silicon Valley. This well explains the almost universal sexual exploitation of their captives by alien abductors. That is a recurring theme in these stories. In the second place, in the course of their physical examination of abductees, the aliens inflict pain on their victims and frequently scar them. In spiritual literature, and especially in the lives of the saints, we repeatedly read of physical attacks against Christian believers by demonic spirits. If these aliens are not demons, how is it that beings so advanced that they can achieve space travel cannot prevent pain and scarring during routine physical examinations? Well, there have been, and I've interviewed these people who might refute that part. Although I think that is valid thing to think about. It's also like when people say, how could these things visit Earth and then crash? Who knows? But I've talked to people they were interviewed in the first Inverted World book who say they've had implants, implanted into their brain with no feeling. And they woke up with just like this, a scar. Do you believe them? I don't know. Just yesterday we talked about how the military might be putting stuff inside of us, making, the military abductions. But this archbishop says this is a classical demonic machination. Demons inevitably strive in a methodical way to overcome the initial and natural repulsion that human beings feel in their presence, gaining the confidence of those whom they seek to mislead. Finally, the spiritual effects of abductees contain contacts with aliens, as we have pointed out, are anti-Christian. Abductees are drawn away from the universal teachings of Orthodox Christianity and towards the demonic delusion that underlies modern New Age philosophies. Human transformation ceases for these victims of alien visitation to be a God-oriented, grace-mediated process, but becomes part of a personality-dissolving return to the elemental universals upon which the pagan notion of paradise is predicated. Now, I think there's a lot of truth there. And I have this, last but not least, for this alleged quarrel happening behind the scenes at the White House about a religious upheaval that could come out of UFO disclosure. Christianity.com. Should Christians entertain the idea of aliens? When is this from? 3 years ago. A recent hearing within the House of Representatives has revealed that a former intelligence official, David Grush, claims that the Pentagon has recovered crash vehicles as well as biological remains that were non-human. Grush is just, all these whistleblowers I don't like the cut of their jib. Two other witnesses, both former Navy officers, again, some of that naval intelligence stuff that is just a little weird when they're shaping narratives. I got friends in the Navy. I don't know if I've said this story before, but in like 5th grade, so growing up near West Point, being one of the only civilians in that in the West Point area, I had a friend who was from a Navy family. So his dad was Navy, high up in the Navy, and I was really good friends with him. My first band was with this kid, and shout out Dan. And his dad was like a really clean-cut guy, just your typical officer. Super short haircut, high and tight, very nice guy. Very rarely do I remember him smiling when we were young, But every now and then he would drink. And he would talk about aliens. And he would say, I'll never forget this detail. He would say that our government has been in contact with aliens and they look like us, but they're a little shorter, but they have an extra joint in their arm. So I think that is like a 2 elbow situation. But that always sounded weird to me. I didn't really know, obviously in like 5th or 6th grade, whenever that was, that I didn't know about the grays. But then it's like, maybe, what was he talking about? Did he know something? Was he allowed to see something to make him think that those were aliens? We brought up the Annie Jacobson clip quite a while ago. And after rewatching it, this is her Joe Rogan clip where she talks about a source from Area 51 telling her that the government was experimenting on autistic children and making them look like extraterrestrials so that it would freak out the Soviets. That story, upon my re-listening, sounded bogus. Not maybe she believes it, but the source, maybe he was used as propaganda. Like maybe even the source doesn't understand. Well, it just seemed a little weird. I used to believe that sort of like, okay, they would do that. And look, the government could very, very, very well do that kind of thing. We know they like to experiment on humans. But I don't know if that's true or not. But I think about that a lot when we're discussing having seen allegedly alien biology. So 2 other witnesses, back to Christianity.com. Both former Navy officers testified that they too had personal experiences with UFOs. There was also a video from 2004 where they apparently caught a strange spacecraft on camera. This, as you might expect, has led to more conversation about the possibility of other life forms on Earth. Is it possible that aliens exist? And if they do, how might that impact faith? Does the Bible mention aliens? Would Jesus be the savior of aliens too? We'll explore those questions today. Before specifically answering the question about intelligent life on other planets, it might be helpful to change our question for just a moment. Does the Bible ever mention penguins? Does the Bible ever mention the kangaroo? I don't know if I like where this is going. The answer is no. And yet this does not throw us into a tailspin of faith. To the people living in the time of the Bible, the world of Australia and Antarctica was foreign, just as Mars would be to us today. It's only a matter of scale. It may also help us to fill out what the term alien even means. Its most simple definition is one of a person, thing that belongs or relates to another person, place, or thing. It's a stranger. Therefore, from the perspective of someone living in Jerusalem, a penguin is an alien bird and a kangaroo is an alien marsupial. When we expand this to mean an alien to Earth, then it is simply a life form that belongs to a realm other than Earth. Given this definition, in one sense, we could say that the angels and demons are aliens of sorts. I tried briefly to see if there was a specific denomination of Christianity related to this website. Kind of hard to pick through. There's various pages about Catholicism, Protestantism. So it might just be like a real big umbrella, which is why this reads to me as very kind of vague and wishy-washy. But just thinking about this third one in this collection we just went through, you can already hear like the different interpretation, right? It's so interesting to me. And to this, the Bible is silent. For the most part, it is silent because the understanding at the time in which the scriptures were written was about as informed of other planets as they were penguins and kangaroos. What the Bible does declare is that God is the creator of the entire universe. That's John 1:3. That the heavens declare the glory of God. That's Psalm 19:1. And that Christ is the Redeemer of the entire universe. Colossians 1:15, they are referencing there. This begs the question, if we discovered aliens, how would they fit into a Christian worldview? Some are thrown by the idea of aliens on other planets because it is often connected with evolution. How'd they get there? Do they have their own creation story? And if they have their own creation story, do they have their own fall and redemption? Those are fun questions. The first thing to consider is that aliens are not human. This is significant because the Bible proclaims that humanity has a unique relationship with God, having been created in his image. The creation of humanity is set apart from the creation of other aspects of creation, including other life forms. Therefore, if aliens do exist, they exist in a manner similar to angels, demons, or cats, which I suppose might also fit into the demonic category. A little humor there from Christianity.com. Answering this question, then, is similar to asking how a penguin, a kangaroo, or a cat relates to a Christian worldview. Unicorns and dragons are mentioned in the Bible. What is the purpose of other life forms like animals? We know that God created them and God cares for them. We may also conclude that if aliens are part of creation, then they are part of God's works. And from this, we can conclude with Psalm 104:31 that God delights in them. It also wouldn't be a stretch to conclude that Psalm 148, that they too bring glory and praise to God. We would need to be cautious, though, in extending some of the ruling and reigning language of Genesis 1 onto a being from another planet. It seems pretty clear, it says here, from Genesis 1, that even though God created everything, that humanity is the pinnacle of his creation, the sphere of their co-regency of this garden is the Garden of Eden on earth. To this end, aliens would probably fit a little closer to angels than to animals. This leads to what might be the most pressing issue in regard to aliens within a Christian worldview, namely their redemption. Are aliens redeemed? Are they redeemable? Would Jesus be the savior of aliens too? Jesus Christ came in the flesh to the earth to redeem humanity. As Scripture declares, he took on flesh in order to redeem people. The author of Hebrews even explicitly states it is not angels that he helps. What does this mean for aliens and their salvation? There are four main answers to this question. It says here, the aliens do not need redemption. Aliens need redemption, but God provides it specifically for them. Aliens need redemption, and it is provided through Christ's earthly sacrifice. Aliens need redemption, and the sacrifice of Christ is reenacted in their own world. The fourth option is the least plausible, as Hebrews 9:27-28 seems to indicate that the sacrifice of Christ was a once-for-all act. I suppose one could argue that this is humanly speaking, and that all would refer to all of humanity, but not necessarily human life forms. The first option, there is nothing in Scripture that would lead us to believe that Christ is reenacting the same sacrifice in other worlds. Yeah, I do not believe that at all. The first option, though one which C.S. Lewis might have held, also does not seem to entirely jive with Scripture. So I'm just going to skip through some of this. I don't really buy this one. I think, this is just my theory now, this just seems a little too soft on aliens for me here at Christianity.com. I think if there are other beings on other planets, I've long held the idea that it is humans from previous breakaway civilizations who left Earth. They went underground or they went to hide somewhere above the fake clouds. And that a lot of the other stuff is angels or demons. I know there's people who listen who think that is reductive. But that is what, to me, in my reading of the Bible, feels right. But let me know what you think, because as we went through three different types of Christian-based worldviews on aliens. It's very, very different, up to interpretation. And I am just a little human with a little brain. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else here at the end here that's worth reading. If aliens do exist, it shouldn't cause a crisis of faith for any believer. As mentioned earlier, in one sense, it's no different than discovering a new creature in the rainforest. I mean, it's a little different. If you're going down this route of like it's actually extraterrestrials from another planet, I think it's a little different. And yet, there are some unique questions and complexities to intelligent life being found on another planet. Even still, aliens could easily fit into a biblical worldview. Does this make impossible the existence of life elsewhere in the universe? I appreciate the answer of Albert Mohler on this question. The answer is no, that's speculative, Albert said. What it does make very clear is that the entire cosmos was created for the drama of redemption, as Calvin said. The cosmos is a theater of God's redemption, of what would take place here in order to save sinful humanity. We have no reason to believe there is any other story out there. There is nothing in Scripture that says there can't be some form of life somewhere. But what we are told is that the cosmos was created in order that on this planet, Jesus Christ, in space and time and history, would come to save sinful humanity. In other words, the Christian faith is centered on what Jesus Christ has done to redeem sinful humanity. Can aliens fit into this picture? Sure, but it's entirely speculative at this point. So, three very different attitudes, some overlapping attitudes with this. Let's round out today's episode with some Bigfoot stuff. And I do have some updates with Bill Gates we might as well get into. This is a quick one. Quick little story. I saw this on Coast to Coast. Technically, 1190 KEX News Radio reported on it first. Quick little Bigfoot story here. A mountain lion hunter in South Dakota reported hearing a series of strange sounds that some suspect could have come from Sasquatch. The intriguing incident, which occurred last March in the state's Custer County, came to light this past week when his account of the eerie event was shared by the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. According to the witness, he had been attempting to draw out a mountain lion using a call that resembled a distressed fawn when, after around 2 hours, he heard two different style of knocks behind me. I don't know if everything else seems to be behind a paywall with that story. But I do have this extra part here. In addition to the classic wood knock associated with Bigfoot, the hunter recalled hearing a clucking sound that one might make with their tongue. Chillingly, the witness said, that noise continued for around 15 minutes before he suddenly heard the weirdest, deepest language that I've ever heard before, later likening the sound to a guttural mumbling. The noise was so unusual that he jumped up and ran out into the open and waited to observe what was behind the baffling sounds, but I never did see anything, he said. While the hunter is not entirely certain of what he heard, the incident was unsettling enough that he has refused to return to the spot where the weird incident occurred. A little Bigfoot update for you. And I'd also... I figure I'll let you guys know with some Bigfoot news here. Where is this? Thought I had the state pulled up, but I don't. Oh, yeah. For my friends in Kentucky. Oh, yeah. It's called Blue Ridge Squatch Fest. So I guess that could have been a hint that it was Kentucky. Blue Ridge Squatch Fest to bring Bigfoot and paranormal celebration to Owensboro. So if we got anyone out there in Kentucky, this is for you. Owensboro will welcome a new kind of festival this fall, one dedicated to Bigfoot cryptids and all things paranormal. Organizers say the inaugural Blue Bridge Squatch Fest promises dozens of vendors, expert speakers, contests, and family-friendly activities, all benefiting local charities. The event is set for September 26th at the Kentucky Soundstage. And we have a quote here. We've been working on it for about 4 years, said Fred Tism, who is heading up the festival and has spent years traveling to similar events across the region. I bet he went to UFO Fest in Pine Bush, New York. He said his inspiration was struck after attending a Bigfoot festival in Staunton, Kentucky, that far exceeded expectations. They prepared for maybe 3,000 to 4,000 people. They had 12,000 go through it, and that's in the middle of nowhere. People came from northern Cincinnati, from Stanley, everywhere. I love Kentucky, by the way. Not just because the people really care about Bigfoot, but Kentucky is incredible. It's also the home state to the late, great Hunter Thompson. So that convinced him to do this. And if you guys are there, they just announced this. The event will feature live music, food trucks, face painting, and photo opportunities. With the festival's resident Sasquatch, Sid, organizers are applying for a license to show Harry and Hendersons throughout the day during the festival. That movie and TV show really did a number on me growing up. I always expected to, one of my early chores was taking out the trash. We had a dumpster that was like bear proof, but even when you chain the door shut, the bears learned to open it. They are smart, but I always expected to see the Bigfoot out there. I really expect to see Harry from Harry and Henderson's. All right, get a load of this. Bill Gates admits he had 2 affairs with Russian women. Oh, these ads. And he apologizes to staff over Jeffrey Epstein ties. Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates has admitted he had 2 affairs with Russian women while married to his now ex-wife Melinda French Gates and issued a groveling apology for his links with convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Gates, who is 70 years old, told staffers at his foundation on Tuesday that he flew on a private plane with a disgraced financier and spent time with him in the U.S. and abroad, but didn't participate in any crime, according to the Wall Street Journal. I did nothing illicit. I saw nothing illicit, Gates said in the town hall meeting. To be clear, I never spent any time with the victims, the women around him. Gates first met Epstein in 2011, which was after the financier's Florida conviction for procuring a child for prostitution, and continued to socialize with him, seemingly ignoring concerns raised by Gates, his wife, French Gates. The billionaire has always denied wrongdoing over his Epstein links, but came clean about alleged affairs during his time with French Gates, who filed for divorce in 2021, ending their 27-year marriage. I did have affairs, he said, one with a Russian bridge player who met me at bridge events, and one with a Russian nuclear physicist who I met through business activities. That's what he told his staffers. And I'm sure he's telling the truth, just like Howard Lutnick has been telling the truth. Epstein had previously threatened Gates over the affair with Russian bridge player Mila Antonova, which was previously reported by the outlet. Epstein met Antonova while seeking financial backers for a bridge academy before he paid for her to attend software coding school. Gates met Antonova in 2010 at a tournament they were playing in. I'm reading this in the Post, by the way. In a July 4th, 2013 email to Boris Nikolic, Gates' chief advisor for science and technology, Epstein named 2 women with whom he alleged Gates had affairs. The pedophile claimed the women risked becoming overnight sensations. Bill risks going from richest man to biggest hypocrite. Melinda, a laughingstock, pledges will disappear as a result, Epstein told Nikolic. Just weeks after, Epstein sent a resignation letter email to himself in which he seemed to be writing as Nikolic. During the past few weeks, I have been caught up in a severe marital dispute between Melinda and Bill, the email said. The email tried to suggest Nikolic had assisted Gates in securing medication in order to deal with the consequences of sex with Russian girls. Man, she looks very young. I don't believe she was underage, but there's a picture here of Bill in his little sweater vest. Nikolic claimed the emails were not written on his behalf or at his request. During the town hall meeting, Gates admitted he spent time with Epstein in New York, Germany, France, and Washington, but said he never visited the island. Gates acknowledged now his ex-wife had always been wary of his links with Epstein. To give her credit, she was always kind of skeptical about the Epstein thing, he said. Gates also admitted how his links with Epstein had impacted others within the Gates Foundation. I apologize to other people who are drawn into this because of the mistake I made, he said. It definitely is the opposite of the values of the foundation and the goals of the foundation, which I don't agree with. I don't even think that statement is true because Gates wants to destroy civilization. He wants population control. He wants to block out the sun. But let's believe him now. Let's believe him now. Gates previously said he was foolish to spend any time with Epstein. I thought it would help with global health philanthropy. Yeah, I bet you did, Bill. In fact, it failed to do that. It was just a huge mistake, he said. Now, not connected to Epstein news, but I see people out there. They're more mad at Candace. Like, you don't have to like Candace. They're more mad at Candace for doing her thing, which you can agree with or not agree with. I think she has every right to say whatever she wants. I defended Alex Jones throughout all the Sandy Hook because I believe he had every right to say what he wants. It might sound ghoulish to you to question a widow or to question why these children died, or some people will surmise if they died because of false flags, because of the history we go over on the show all the time with the false flags that have happened or have been considered. So another thing that's been going on is like people getting more mad at the Epstein files being released, or people focusing on it, or just move on from the Epstein files. It's nothing. Trump himself has said it. And what I keep saying is, first of all, this is an insight into not just blackmail, but like how these elites behind the scenes operate, how they think of us, how they manufacture wars, how they profit off of civilizational collapse, trafficking, talking about planning pandemics. I mean, like, it is the vortex of so much. And the other thing is, like, they'll say there's some people are saying there's a pedophile panic, like it's a satanic panic, and it's not real. It's not rooted in anything real. Let me tell you, unfortunately, there are pedophiles everywhere. That is a very unfortunate reality. We are in a fallen world surrounded by a lot of evil, and a lot of that evil wants to prey upon your innocent children. I have seen it firsthand, and I read about it every day. Whether it's the 764 cult, whether it's the government, whether it's Epstein and everyone in his network, it is pervasive. Okay, so I saw this story. I'm like, well, here's just another example of someone with a lot of money, who, let's just read it. Multi-millionaire Squatty Potty creator arrested in Utah for buying child pornography. The multi-millionaire creator of Squatty Potty was hit with federal charges in Utah for allegedly buying countless child sex abuse materials, according to authorities. Robert Edwards, 50, was arrested for allegedly buying and receiving a trove of images of child sexual abuse material between March 2021 and November 2025. That's according to the U.S. Attorney's Office in the District of Utah. And they announced that on Monday. The entrepreneur and co-founder of the specialized toilet seat stool that's designed to ease bowel movements was indicted by a federal grand jury on February 10th and cuffed in Washington County 2 days later. I missed this story, but it was on my radar this morning. In March 2021, an undercover FBI agent joined a group chat used to trade child sexual abuse material. That is something that I knew existed, but it was seeing it in person when I was out there in Ohio, and seeing the guys being like, oh yeah, we use PayPal, and we use these group chats and Roblox to buy and sell this material. In the group chat, there was a meeting room where members viewed a collection of the vile content being streamed on a main screen. Federal authorities detailed. This is from a circle of hell. Participants included a user later identified as Edwards, and they were visible in the meeting, according to the DOJ. In May 2025, FBI agents also learned that Edwards may have purchased additional child sexual abuse material through his PayPal account, which was flagged for 4 suspicious transactions. In November, law enforcement executed a search warrant on Edwards and his home and confiscated a cell phone from his vehicle that contained multiple videos and images of child sexual abuse material, some of which was downloaded only 2 weeks prior. Just don't tell me we're experiencing some sort of new moral panic. We are confronting the reality that there is evil all over the place, and the unfortunate reality that it wants to harm children. It is disgusting, and it is widespread. Anyone telling you otherwise is either afraid to confront that reality and has no spiritual discernment, and just doesn't care for protecting innocent children, or children, that's redundant. Children are innocent, or they're in on it. I don't really see it being anything other than black and white when it comes to that, because it's weird. It's weird how many people are pushing for people to let go of this. And this isn't connected to Epstein, but you can see how it's like adjacent to Epstein and the story, and how these people, whether they're poor people, whether they're the manager of a local 7-Eleven, or they are multimillionaires, This evil, demonic urge is so pervasive. Authorities then seized additional devices and allegedly discovered more child sex abuse material from this guy. In November, law enforcement read that. He pleaded not guilty to receipt of child pornography charges during his initial court appearance on his indictment and was ordered held without bail by Judge Paul Kohler in St. George, authorities said. Edwards co-founded Squatty Potty in 2011 to address his mother, Judy's constipation issues. The mother-son duo successfully pitched a footstool for aiding bathroom business to investor Lori Greiner on Shark Tank. The product turned the Utah family into millionaires. He returns to court on March 2nd. I just think it's so heinous. It's so gross. I'm trying not to leave it on a dark note. But it's just, you can't let people tell you this isn't happening. It is unfortunately happening. That's why we need to talk about it. And I don't ever want to stop talking about this stuff. I don't like talking about it. I don't like having to read about it. But when you become parents, you realize there's just so much that you have to instill in your own soul as a parent that you don't want your kids to know about, but you're also trying to teach them the guardrails of this world and how to live in it, how to defend yourself against it, and how to have that spiritual discernment to be like, oh, that person is evil. That person wants to actually use me for evil. They're lying, It's terrible. It is terrible stuff. Let's see. What's this? All right. I just want to end on good news. So I just looked up good news today and I found this. Good Samaritan sprang into action to save baby that fell into Lake Michigan. From Chicago comes the story of a pair of heroes rescuing an infant that had been blown into Lake Michigan. 30-year-old Leo Cundiff was on the phone with his aunt at Belmont Harbor when he felt the wind pick up fiercely, followed by a blood-curdling scream from a woman close by. Cundiff knew exactly what had happened. The wind caught the bassinet of a stroller, and as the nursery rhyme goes, down went the baby, cradle and all, right into the lake. I just realized that the lady wasn't able to help because she was in too much panic, which is understandable. So I'm like, I guess I'm going in. And I just jumped, Cundiff told the Chicago Tribune. I had no idea what the plan was. Reaching the stroller, Cundiff couldn't get the baby out and had to lift the top half out of the water to stop it from sinking. Enter Louis Caposte, an American Airlines pilot who was the second on scene, and paired Cundiff's impulsive heroism with a more measured response. Realizing Cundiff was treading water with 30-plus pounds of soaking wet stroller, he tossed one arm of his Chicago Cubs jacket to him, which Cundiff admitted helped a lot. Amazing. Holding onto the other arm of the jacket, Caposte kept Cundiff afloat until the baby's nanny arrived to help lift the stroller out of the water. First responders arrived to take man and baby to the hospital. Yeah, I called work, called my girlfriend. My aunt was on the phone. She heard the whole thing. I just threw my phone down, and I guess she called my mom. I was trying to make sure they all knew I was fine and the baby was good, Cundiff told the newspaper. Despite the weather being fair, the water was still cold, and at the hospital they discovered that Cundiff was experiencing elevated heart enzymes that concerned the doctors enough to recommend an overnight stay. Caposte applauded his co-savior. That's the epitome of a hero, he said. Someone who's going to act to help somebody else they don't know, even though they're placing their own life in danger. Amazing. He is an absolute rock star, Caposte said. As for Cundiff, he admitted that being called a hero felt weird, leaving himself just a server and stand-up comedian in the right place at the right time. That's amazing. That just reminds me of, I did watch some of the State of the Union. And I just want to get his name right before I say this, because It is such a crazy story, and I love seeing it. The Coast Guard who rescued all the kids, the kid, I think they rescued a few kids from that horrible flooding that happened in Texas. But yeah, Trump awarded Scott Ruskin last night to State of the Union. As the waters threatened to sweep her away, 11-year-old Millie Kate McClymond closed her eyes and prayed to God. She thought she was going to die, Trump said. Those prayers were answered when Coast Guard rescue swimmer Scott Ruskin descended from a helicopter above. He lifted not just Millie Kate, but 164 others to safety. It was a lot more. People watched Scott from a distance, and they couldn't believe what they were seeing. The winds were blowing, the rain was pouring, everything was going. Trump said, tonight, Scott and Millie Kate are here together, reunited for the very first time. Amazing. All right, needed some good news here at the end, right? There are good people in this crazy world. I know many of them. I know you guys know many of them. Say a prayer for all of us, okay? We need it. The world needs it. Thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you tomorrow. Have a great night.